What's up, everybody? My name is Cortez, and I just want to introduce myself. So, this is actually my first comic book review, probably the first of many. And I got another channel on YouTube, but I want to focus on this because I am a comic book guy. And more than any other media, comic books are actually my favorite, absolute favorite. And lifelong Spider-Man fan, and that's pretty much the long and short of it. Spidey's my favorite hero, has always been since I was a kid, and I decided to dive back into comics after watching a couple of YouTube videos out there, and I decided to try to get into putting my own little spin on this comics thing. But anyway, what I'm going to be talking about today is Absolute Carnage #1. That's right, #1. And it's actually a solid comic. I know that it's a little bit late to the party, but I just found out that where I'm at, which is Fort Hood, Texas, they actually have a comic book shop on Stan Sluter. It's called America's Heroes. Actually, a really, really good comic book shop. If you're in the area, I would highly go check it out. You can go get your hair cut at Stallion Beauty. That's good. Anyway, let's get into it. If you like the video, you can please like, share, comment, subscribe. Even though this is the first video on this channel. Okay, so let's get into it. This is Absolute Carnage 1. Yes, my hand is shaky. I'm trying to get some stabilization on this thing. Probably gonna have to buy a gimbal, but Anyway, it's written by Donny Cates and Ryan Stegman's on the art. The art is absolutely gorgeous inside of this thing. I mean, this is one of, I don't even know how many covers this thing. Like, I was having a hard time at the comic book store even picking up, just picking out a really good cover because there's so many of them. But this one, I felt like it conveyed the actual message of the story. So let's get into the interiors real quick. It's chapter 1. Anyway, so the story of this one is it's some god, and there's a god of the symbiotes, and he created them, and then they decide to seal him away. It's kind of a Naruto-esque plot, but it works. It actually works, and basically, this is told from Eddie Brock's mind, mostly. There's a lot of thought bubbles in this thing. I mean, a lot of them. And it basically he's talking about, hey, these are all the people who have been infected or worn the symbiote at some point in their life. And they have to catch this thing because, yeah, it's plot. They have to get the thing and it'll solve the other things. But if the bad guys get the thing first, then it's total annihilation. So we start off with Eddie. I'm not even going to try to ruin this for anybody who, has not been following this. But Eddie is running, but he tells you in the very beginning this spoiler that I'm not going to ruin for you. But it's really fast moving. This comic is very, very fast moving. Like I said, interior art, gorgeous. This is good stuff. Like, I've read a couple of comics from Marvel lately, and I'm really not like impressed by a lot of it these days because I don't know. It seems like it's amateur hour over there in New York, but I mean, just some of these action scenes are ridiculous in this thing. I'm skipping pages, obviously, because I do not want to get flagged for copyright. But I mean, this stuff is great. It's a great comic. It's solid, but like I said, it's really fast moving. So basically, the whole internal thing is that Eddie Brock has come back to New York and he's on the run. Carnage has returned and he's trying to kill him. So this scene right here, they're fighting. They touch the third rail. If you've seen like Breaking, then you know that the third rail is bad. The third rail will get you killed. So it's pretty bad, but it doesn't kill Carnage. For the sake of story, that's actually good. It keeps the plot actually moving. So I believe your boy Zach, he actually told it that this is how you want to introduce your heroes. Basically, Eddie Brock goes looking for Peter Parker, aka Spider-Man, the Spider-Man. Miles Morales, he can be Spider-Man, but he's not the Spider-Man. Very good shot, very good defined muscle structure. You see this build on Spider-Man quite a lot in this book. He has a very muscular build. I know some artists, they draw him as like a normal average guy in a suit, but the thing is, he's not an average guy. His arms and his shoulders, they're going to be defined. In the military, we do PT. That's, I'm at Fort Hood. Obviously, I'm in the military. I'm not just somebody's military brat. But, I mean, his shoulder structure, the way that his triceps, his biceps are looking, even the thin wrist, which makes his actual forearms pop that much more. Like, this is a superhero build. This is a guy who looks like he can beat people up. He looks like a guy who can fight and keep up with Thanos anyway. Anyway, Eddie Brock and Kid find Spider-Man, and Spider-Man pretty much plays the straight man to Eddie Brock in here. I mean, usually with these type of stories, you don't get the hero actually questioning the plot because he can't even understand it either. It's kind of hard to explain. So let's take a look at this. I mean, gods, Eddie. When do you start fighting gods and Carnage? You come to me with gods and Carnage, but with like god powers? What happened to evil businessmen and digging robots and sewer dinosaurs and fun stuff like? And so basically Eddie feels like he's being patronized by Spider-Man and everything. And we find out there's been a bunch of like mass murders that have been happening. And anyway, they go see a guy. Like I said, I'm trying not to spoil this because it's a very good setup, but it's really fast moving. I feel like a lot of people might like the fast moving stuff in these days because it moves kind of like a horror action movie. If you think about it, like there's characters introduced, they kind of start talking and stuff before they're actually introduced. Then Spider-Man plays you, the regular guy who doesn't know anything of what's going on, and he has to be explained to. But I feel like some shots, I feel like if they slowed down and did some like establishing shots or anything, like they go to this warehouse and find out that this guy here has been building the thing that's going to help. It's a MacGuffin. They're going to try to use this MacGuffin to do the thing that they need to do. I'm not trying to spoil it because it's a very good story and it's very well written. There's some expectation subversion that goes on in this story. I mean, some of this stuff kind of doesn't make any sense to me. Like, for one, Eddie Brock in the beginning, Venom comes out to save his life. And this is one of the splash panels. This is very well drawn. And I kept thinking these guys look more like Naruto minions, more like than Carnage spawns, because he obviously the bad guy has to show up and do random acts of evilness, and it has to culminate in an awesome scene before the end of the book. But it kind of made me think of Naruto with the swirls and just like the symbol of the Leaf Village. Even Naruto himself having the seal on his belly before they unlocked it to release Nine Tails. But a lot of this stuff just seems so. It's not rushed because the story keeps moving fast. Like I mean, there's interrogations. There's a lot of questioning. Peter Parker's he's on the top of his game when it comes to writing of Spider-Man dialogue in this thing. And he's in Spider-Man form. He's not that I can beat anybody. Don't be afraid of him. None of that stuff. Like he's literally like, I don't know why I'm here, but I'm going to help you because this thing affects me as well. Because for a time, Spider-Man wore the symbiote Spider-Man. The symbiote costume as well. So that kind of makes him integral to the actual plot because that would mean that Carnage is after him as well as Eddie Brock, as well as everybody else, Wolverines and all of them that have worn the symbiote as well. And so that's actually woven into the plot. Like I said, crazy stuff. This is probably my favorite panel in this whole entire book. and I don't want to spoil it for you to reveal what's going on here, but interesting stuff. Very good. And I really like this last page. It tells you a lot. I have issue 2, and I'm going to talk about it a little later, but you need to run out and you need to get this book. I'm not even a fan of Venom, but I'm a huge Spider-Man Mythos fan. This really takes the mythos and it, you've got your plot introduction by Eddie Brock. Then you've got your introduction to the hero, the guy that everybody knows and loves, and you're thinking he's gonna show up and he's gonna do cool stuff. I mean, there's even a scene in here where he's trying to use brute force, and Spider-Man's not about brute force. That's not him. So he decides to web up his hand and punch walls. It's like a moment of desperation that's so ridiculous that it could only happen in the comic book. And the faces that they make are so like expressive in this book. Like, Ryan Stegman is a doggone national treasure. Like, he's up there like with Ryan Otley from Invincible, as far as I'm concerned, with this expressive yet cartoony, and his colors really brings out these things. Like, you don't get lost in any. Well, actually, I take that back. I got lost in this page right here, just seeing all these punches and stuff. It didn't make that much sense to me until I went back and I had to read it again and again and again. But it wasn't anything that slowed it down, because I actually was able to digest what was actually going on. And that's what you actually need to figure out this story, savor it in, and take in what's actually happening here. It's essentially a big giant chase. It's like I said, bad guy comes, bad guy announces what bad guy's going to do. They have X amount of time to stop bad guy. They get led into a wild chase. They're fighting for their lives, and then expectation subversion right at the end, the last page. It does leave you hanging, and it leaves you wanting more. But anyway, this was Absolute Carnage issue 1. I highly recommend it, and I think that it's worth your time. I hear the digital version's actually better on Comixology. This was $7.99, but the Comixology version actually has like the pencils, and then they have the inks, and it has the story breakdowns. You get some scripts. The only like extras that you get in the back of this one, the print version, or maybe there might be print versions with this, but this is all you get. It's like a script that I really didn't even try to bother to read. It's like a interviewer talking to Cletus Cassidy, who we all know is actually Carnage. So I would recommend, if you're going to buy this, then at least get the digital version, because it seems you're getting more bang for your buck. However, this is a really big book. Not big as in you're sitting there like, man, this is too much for me. But it's really a big book. It's filled with a lot of stuff. There's a lot of pages in this book and a lot to kind of digest and uncover. But it's good and it's fast moving. If you like your Spidey stories full of action and a couple of craziness that only comic book hijinks can give to you, then I highly recommend it. Go out and buy it. Let Marvel know that you are about the business when it comes to comic books, so they can keep putting out more quality stuff like this. Like, the only question that I had in there was if Venom can jump out, because he's always living in Eddie Brock, and Eddie Brock in the book has said that everyone who was tinged with the symbiote, it goes deep down in their DNA, it either lies dormant or whatever. How come when Spidey's getting the crap beat out of him by like Moreland and all that stuff, he like, the black suit doesn't just jump out and protect him. He just takes it, and then he dies and goes into a cocoon, and he comes out with some stingers that he can shoot. That was the other storyline, and that was when I got back into comics shortly after 9/11 had happened. I was in middle school, but I didn't understand it, and it's still ridiculous to me. I gave that trade paperback away, that whole other storyline. I think the coolest thing that came out of the other storyline was Aranya, which had some amazing covers. But anyway, that's the review of Absolute Carnage. If you guys like this video, go ahead, leave me a comment down below. I try to read them. I try to get back to you. This is my first video. I'm sorry about the wobbliness and everything. But, yep, my name is Quatez, and I will come back with another comic review. All right, I'll see you.